This is talkSPORT Women's Football Show on talkSPORT 2. If you missed this episode live or duck in halfway through, don't worry, we're also available on the podcast. Plenty of places you can download us, but first head to the talkSPORT app to find us. Now, my final guest of today is none other than lead commentator for Arsenal, Max Jones. Max, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Leanne. Yeah, it's good to see you twice in quick succession.
I know it's been great. I mean, I knew, right? Your voice is so iconic because anyone that's a gooner that goes to the Emirates, when you hear the highlights, that is Max's voice. When you hear the Arsenal app, it is your voice. And I remember thinking, you and I worked together for the first time doing the Arsenal Leon game the other week. And then I heard your voice. I was like, I know you. So does that happen quite often where, like, because you're a commentator, and I know this happens to a lot of commentators, people don't know what they look like. And then they're like, I know your voice.
Yeah, do you know what? It happens much more with co-commentators because I don't tend to put too much of myself out there. Just I don't know. I'm quite a private person, I guess. But yeah, I think the second that I start commentating, I think my voice is probably a bit different when I'm talking compared to when I'm broadcasting. So yeah, when I start getting into it a bit more, I do tend to see the same look that I saw from you, where it's like a oh, hang on. Yeah, I do know who you are. So yeah, I think I've had a similar experience actually with your good friend Fern Whelan. The first time I worked with her because I do some games on the Women's Super League World Feed as well. So yeah, you might have heard my voice on Sky or BBC coverage, whatever that is, if it does sound familiar as well, and if you're not an Arsenal fan. So yeah, not too many people recognise me, but I suppose yeah, when the voice comes out, maybe a few more.
Well, it's been quite the week for you. I mean, you covered Arsenal in the semi-final for the women and the men.
Mm.
Oh, Max, like, how great would it have been if women could have been in the final again and the men? Like, because the thing is, when I was at Arsenal in 2004 and in 98, we were always reliant upon the men. So we had an open bus parade. So we used to go around Islington and we'd be like, come on, come on. Even though I'm a Man United fan, I'd want the men to like win something. So we got to go on that parade. Like, talk me through your emotions of this week because you've seen the women go out and then you've seen the men go through.
Do you know what? Coming into the week, I thought, 2-1 lead over Leon, and then going into the second leg, traditionally at a stadium where they've done so well in the past, you think, okay, brilliant. They're, halfway there, really, really good opportunity. And then just unfortunately on the day, Leon were the better team. There were a few things that didn't click for the players. So yeah, that was gutting to experience. I worked with Emma Byrne on the second leg, and we were, ready to go to Oslo. We had our bags packed, and all of a sudden, yeah, we're unpacking them again. So yeah, that was difficult. But then I guess yeah, the men's team has been quite a nice remedy for that, and the atmosphere at the Emirates on Tuesday evening. Honestly, I've never experienced anything like it. I think they've had. From the men's point of view this season, they've had two moments that really lifted the stadium. Number one being Max Dowman becoming the Premier League's youngest scorer. It felt like the whole stadium came together. But yeah, for the men's semi-final second leg, it was just 90 minutes of pure support and positivity. And this isn't a dig out Arsenal. There are plenty of stadiums like this, but it's so rare to get 90 minutes of positive energy from the stands. And yeah, there was just a tremendous outpouring of emotion and just joy at the end of the game as well. So yeah, that was lovely. My white trainers weren't as pleased though, because there were so many flares and red paint as well. Got all the way home and realised, yeah, my trainers were a completely different colour. So still trying to work that out.
It's funny you should mention Emma Byrne because she's my guest just before you on the show today. So that works out quite well. So for my listeners, Max, who are not familiar with you, like tell me how you got into commentating. Why did you get into it?
Yeah, I mean, my mum will always tell the same story when
Love
she
my
tells
mum. I
people.
love a mum. They always love us, didn't they? No matter what.
Yeah, yeah. But whenever she tells people what I do, she always goes back to the same story of how I used to basically I wasn't allowed to kick a ball around the house because I'd break things. So she'd give me a balloon, and I used to kick this balloon around the front room, and I'd commentate on myself while I was doing it. I don't remember doing that, but she says that I did a lot. So I guess there's always been something there that's kind of wanted to broadcast, that's wanted to talk about football. And naturally, look, Leanne, you don't have this experience because you went on to become a footballer. But for the rest of us, all we want to do is play football. The next best thing is to talk about it. And yeah, I got an opportunity. I went and did a sports journalism degree at the University of Brighton. Through there, they had a partnership with Arsenal, ended up working at Arsenal within their editorial team. So like writing, various different articles for the website. In fact, I did your first interview when you returned to the club. I don't know if you remember that.
I
I think
do
I bring it
remember because
up
when you
every
told me
time.
that, I do remember because then they had all these different like pictures of me throughout the years. It was quite funny.
That's
It was
right.
like
Yeah.
my hair transition was interesting. Long hair,
Yeah.
short hair, mohawk.
Almost like two different people seeing you from your first spell and your second.
I
But yeah,
know.
and then yeah, I did a screen test once. So at Arsenal, we quite regularly we auditioned for different hosts on the Matchday show. So you had people like Maya Jama before she was big. She was coming in to do some stuff. And yeah, I was sitting in as like one of the fake guests, I guess. A producer called Carl came over to me after and he said, Max, anyone ever told you your voice? There's a distinct tone to it. Have you ever tried commentary? I thought, well, no. But he decided, do you know what? Let's stick him in front of some academy highlights. Gave me a 2 minute highlight package to voice. I'd hate to hear it back now. It's probably awful. But that was like back in 2018, and I've just kind of stuck at it since. I stayed behind in the office. I used to get the editors to set me up with like an edit suite. They'd play out a full 90 minutes of the game, and I'd just sit there by myself, 8 o'clock at night in the office, just talking to myself, recording it, going back over it, listening to it. And eventually we got to the stage where they trusted me enough to put me on a live broadcast. And I've done plenty of those. So for years I've been the lead commentator on the women's game at Arsenal, and then sort of branched out to the men's as well. But yeah, in the last couple of seasons I've been on the world feed for the Women's Super League as well, which has been a real honor because it's just fantastic to see how much talent is in the league now.
And you mentioned like something I want to pick up on there, Maya Jama. So are you saying that you could have been sitting next to Maya Jama for the Leon Arsenal game, but you were sitting next to me? Maya Jama
uh,
doing commentary.
I don't know whether she got the commentary gig, but yeah, she was one of many actually. We had quite a few. Roman Kemp was in there as
I
well
love
as like
Roman. I just saw him the other day at the Women's Football Awards. Top man.
yeah, lovely guy, and he, when he was just starting out in broadcasting, so many people, even Anita Jones now, who's on
Hmm.
CBS coverage. So she started out just doing a bit of presenting for Arsenal. Obviously, you'll be aware of Nicole Holiday, still
Yeah.
like does a bit for us as well. So yeah, it's a great place to learn your trade and to make your mistakes. But I guess there are any people that would want to try commentary, just give it a go, get out there, go to your local team. And even if it's just a case of just standing, let's say your local team's playing in a field, if you just stand by yourself with a dictaphone, just try and commentate on the game, listen back to it, and then go from there.
I love that, Max, because my next question to you would be like any advice you had, but you've just given it to people there. I love that. And you've worked really hard at your craft as well. And, it was so funny. We had a bit of a moment the other week at the Emirates, didn't we? Because in the middle of the game, I crossed my legs, my foot hit the switch, and it turned off the whole device. So, I've done about 500 games since I retired. And I was thinking, oh my God, like, what are the chances my foot has hit this switch? And it was our first game together, but you had to redo that part of the game. And I was like, sorry, Max.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've lost count of how many games I've done, but that's the first time it's ever happened. So
Oh, well,
yeah,
I'm glad that I
it
was
was
happy
nice
that
that we are able to share it. Yeah.
that my big toe was able to turn off the switch that was underneath. I wanted to ask you about Arsenal this season, obviously, but I'm so gutted. I spoke to me and myself and Uma were talking about the fact that Arsenal, are not in the Champions League final. But like, how would you assess the season for the Arsenal women? So, like, the way it's gone.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a real shame. I did the game against Brighton in midweek as well, and it's a real shame that they weren't able to drag out the title race that bit longer. And I think I saw a couple of comments on that's sort of a reflection on where they are as a team. I think it's definitely we're coming to a transitional stage, or we've already arrived at this transitional stage with Arsenal. I think ultimately they're going to regret that. Yeah, I think it was a 4-game winless run towards the start of the season. They
Yeah.
typically they start the season quite well, and this time around, for whatever reason, they just weren't able to get
But
those
Max,
results
Uma, my
together.
producer, actually brought to my attention. Arsenal have only lost one game this year in the
Which and
WSL.
and
Like,
and that's the crazy thing, right? So it's all of those draws which have just caught up with them, and I think when Plan A hasn't worked for them, they have at times. I mean, they found a way through in recent weeks, but at times they've been a bit slower getting to Plan B. And I think what we're likely to see in the summer is probably quite a few high profile names going, but then also some different profiles of players coming in. And I think those different profiles will maybe lend themselves more to multiple different ways of setting up. We saw what Renee was capable of doing in the Champions League last season, where she could be a bit more flexible, she could be a bit more reactive within games. But I think now, with so many games in a season in women's football, that's ramped up massively in the time that the two of us have been covering it. I think there is a need for the deeper squads, and we've seen with Chelsea this season. It's not just been a tactical thing for them; it's been a personnel issue where they've had so many players out, whereas usually they'd be able to count on, having a bench of real quality, and that's led to them dropping off. So I think, yeah, if I was to reflect on Arsenal as a whole this season, I still think they deserve an immense amount of credit because, like you say, one defeat all season in the league. It was just a case of in those games where it was a bit tight, they were turning to your likes of, Mariona Caldente and Alessia Russo, perhaps a bit too much, and it just needed some invention, some craft from somewhere else on the pitch, which I think those solutions are probably likely to arrive in the summer. And I think, having seen all of the headlines, I
Ooh.
don't think there's going to be any major surprises as to who those players are.
You heard it here first from Max Jones. Now, this is obviously Arsenal TV and Arsenal channel, so we have to give a bit of love to the winners of the WSL, Man City. Like, what have you made of them this year, Max? I do think they deserve to win it. Yes, it didn't go down to the final day, but they've been brilliant, haven't they?
They've been phenomenal. They've been I'm struggling to think of a word other than swashbuckling at the moment because the
What's
way
that
that
mean?
they have just swept aside their competition, right? They have, and look, I know everyone's going to sort of reflect differently on these last few weeks and how maybe it's caught up with them a bit, but in those early weeks, goodness me, they were sensational. I covered the 5-0 win over Chelsea earlier in the season, and that wasn't just a 5-0 win. That could have been so much more. Carolyn has been a revelation. You still have players that did still miss large periods of the season. You've got players who have come in who have started to show glimpses, like Iman Bene, where you think, okay, well, how far can she go now?
Hmm.
And I think for Yeglerts now, it's just a case of, well, can we keep that up? Can we? We've got these foundations now. Can we build on that for next season? Because I think it's maybe there is certainly within the WSL in recent seasons. We saw it with Sonia Bonpastor last season. The instant impact that a new coach can have is massive, and it really helps when you're up against teams playing with established systems where you understand exactly, like a Mark Skinner team, for example. We know how they're going to set up because he's been there so long. It's now going to be a case of, well, how can Andre Yeglets take this to the next level? How can he continue to reinvent? Because, yeah, as I mentioned, as we got towards the end of the campaign, they did sort of slow down a bit, and you want to see that continue to build in some way.
Yeah, definitely, Max. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I loved working with you the other week. I can't wait for more games together and really enjoyed your insight. You heard it here first. Like any young aspiring commentators, get out there in the park, dictaphone. You heard it from Max. So much. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.